Hello everybody and welcome back to another Fallout 4 modding video. Today we are back for another Mods Monthly talking about all of the wonderful, amazing mods that have come out over the past month. And let me say, in May, we've got some good eating. A lot of good mods to the point where usually I feel like I'm trying to find something really good for that 5th or 6th slot. This time I really had to narrow it down. There were so many good mods that it was honestly too much for one of my typical videos. So it was really hard to narrow it down to my favorites, and this time around we actually have some really good stuff. And you know that's the case because this video is not absolutely cram-packed with weapon mods. We have some really cool mods that add new armors, new NPCs. Believe it or not, we have 3 mods that add new NPCs to the game. That is actually fantastic. We do also have a very high-class weapon mod, really quality stuff, and some other little goodies. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Starting off with our first mod, we have what's known as the Conclave. This is a Children of Atom add-on by RascalArt. If you're familiar with RascalArt, then you know they are a top-tier modder when it comes to making new NPCs and additions to the game that help build to the world and some of the existing factions, adding even more interesting enemies to run across, and also some cool loot to find as well. Now, I believe originally this Conclave mod was meant to be something much bigger, but RascalArt kind of ran into some issues and wanted to release it in a sort of different state, providing just an add-on for the Children of Atom that adds some cool new enemies, cool new armors, and even a couple of new weapons that are very nice. The idea for this mod is that some Enclave remnants decided to shack up with the Children of Atom, which is an interesting concept. The idea that somebody whose faction has essentially disintegrated into nothing would partner up with a different faction and maybe start working with them from the inside, maybe taking over, maybe just joining their ranks, who knows. It's something that does make sense, but it is definitely an interesting combo of the two. So because of that, we're going to see some armors and enemies with designs incorporating elements from the Enclave style of armors, as well as the Children of Atom style of ragtag robes and rags and, well, radiation. This ends up with a really cool techno-cult look that actually doesn't stray too far from the original Children of Atom, especially because it does match the color scheme and general vibe of their sort of aesthetic. Obviously leaning into the religious side of things, the combination of technology and religion obviously kind of results in some Warhammery vibes, which I wouldn't be surprised if that's what RascalArt was going for. Now, heads up, this mod does require all the DLC, and it also requires the Enclave Remnants Creation Club add-on, so hopefully you have that. It comes free with the next gen upgrade. However, if you are on the old gen still, you may not be able to access the contents of this mod. Now, the specifics of what are in this mod is going to be 2 new melee weapons that are going to be really cool. One is known as the Division Blade, which is a gigantic sword that does have this really cool yellow lightning that is supposed to be tied to radiation that kind of zip-zaps between it with some cool custom effects. I like it a lot. I think we saw something similar to this recently in the Gunner add-on. There was a robot who kind of went rogue and had a sword like this. Well, now it's going to be more common and found on the Children of Atom. There is also a Division Axe, which, even though it's called an axe, works more like the buzzsaw blade, the Mr. Handy buzzsaw blade from the Automatron DLC. So you hold it out and it's constantly spinning and shooing up people while also having those really cool radiation electrical effects. There are also, it says a new outfit on the mod page, but there's a little bit more than that. There's a couple of new outfits, a whole suite of segmented armor, so that includes, of course, legs, chest piece, etc., and a handful of helmets as well, allowing for some pretty cool combos. There's even a couple of backpacks that you can grab through this mod, so that's pretty nice as well. And all of these will be added to the Children of Atom level list, so you'll be able to find these new weapons and armors on the Children of Atom, as well as the new enemy type known as the Conclave enemies. So you'll find members of the Conclave fighting alongside the Children of Atom, and they will be found anywhere that you could find Children of Atom, whether it's the Glowing Sea or in Far Harbor, anything like that. You may, by chance, find these guys among their ranks at higher levels. And they will also be wearing the new armors and wielding the new weapons. The only thing else for this mob were some planned ideas that never made it in. Originally, there were going to be some new enemy types beyond the scope of humans, combining the radiation of the Children of Atom and the technology of the Enclave to make some pretty cool weirdos and wackos that would have been in this mod. But RascalArt says that they ran into some burnout and weren't able to get them into the final project. However, the ideas will still be in their mind moving forward. Whether that means a new mod altogether or an update to this one, I am still excited and I hope to see something come of that in the future. But moving on, we have another release from the OWAP team. OWAP is something I've been following for quite some time, with tons of really cool updates in work-in-progress channels on different Discords and even on the Nexus, showing off some amazing models of armors and weapons from the classic games. And for a long time there, we got no releases. And now it feels like we're getting so many releases that it's just amazing. We're getting like 1 or 2 a month, and that is super, super cool. And this time we're checking out the classic Recon armor from the OWAP team. And that is going to provide the classic Recon armor found in Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, along with a variant of it that comes with a nice red paint job. Now, I'm going to be completely transparent here. The Recon armor is not always my favorite armor in the past games. Primarily because I hated the hood. I think the hood looked pretty goofy. The armor itself is not too bad, but oftentimes in the classic games, it was easier to find an alternative that was just better, even though this one does look pretty cool. In Fallout 4, though, I feel like it is a little less important. Your armor stat obviously does matter, but you can back it up with so many weapon mods and other additions, and also armor modifications that allow you to wear this suit if you enjoy it, without it feel like it's dragging you down from other potentially better armors. And of course, the hood is separate, so you can now mix and match it with other helmets and hats to see if you can come up with something better. Now, unlike the classic version of this armor, even though it is recreated in a wonderful fashion, it looks almost identical to the original, there are also some additions, thanks to the armor's workbench, that would not have been present prior, including a handful of different skins, including the classic style of Recon suit, an Outcast skin that has the black and red paint job, and a VR suit, which is sort of a light gray all over with yellow details, and that one is pretty interesting, though a bit of an odd one as well. I assume that's maybe for VR training for the Brotherhood of Steel or other pre-war factions. Additionally, there is a shoulder emblem that you can modify on the left shoulder, so you can choose if you have a symbol, like say you want to represent the Brotherhood of Steel. This armor is actually added to the leveled list, and you will start finding it on the Brotherhood of Steel soldiers after level 16, which is pretty dang cool. But there is also a unique Operation Anchorage neural interface suit, which can be found in the Memory Den. Additionally, there is a stealth suit that can be bought from Proctor Tegan, which was apparently cut from the original games, and that is going to have sort of that Outcast paint job, at least that's how it came when I found it. I'm not sure if that may be random, but as far as I can tell, that is how it comes in the nice black and red, and it looks pretty dang cool. Overall, a pretty simple armor mod, a very cool one though, very high quality, and glad to see things like armor modifications and levelless integration to make something so simple from the past games shine in the new ones. Now, instead of looking at past games, let's look at future games, because the next mod we're checking out is the Cremator from Appalachian Flavor, a mod series by Donskie 62. This is going to bring weapons and stuff from 76 into Fallout 4, but they're not going to be ports like some of the people who have been doing that against the rules of Bethesda. This is going to be completely remade from scratch by Donskie, which is amazing. This thing is super, super cool. The Cremator is basically the incinerator from the past games, but maybe a little bit smaller scale, but it functions the exact same way. It's going to lob a big incendiary projectile across a bigger distance than a typical flamer could do, and it's going to explode in a nice ball of fire. Interestingly enough, we happened to just do something like this on our own flamer, but while working on that, we were like, man, I wonder if we should make a dedicated incinerator sometime. Now we don't have to. It seems that Donskie has already made one in a fantastic fashion with really cool modifications, and it looks great. So I think that that weight has been lifted from our shoulders, as it's already been done very, very well. Now, much like you'd expect from a Fallout 4 mod, this thing is heavily modifiable. I am not super familiar with the original weapon from Fallout 76, so you'll have to excuse me if I get any small pieces wrong, but I assume that most of the attachments are going to be inspired by or taken from the Fallout 76 version of this weapon. But there are some little things that I wouldn't expect to be there, like the ability to change out the flame colors, so you can actually swap out to blue, pink, or green tanks to swap out the flame color. No idea if that's in 76 right now because it's not a game I play, but that is an option here, as well as the other attachments like different barrels that will change the projectiles out. There is a dual barrel and even quad barrel that add more projectiles to this thing, which is super cool. A sort of shotgun incendiary grenade launcher. I don't know. It's a pretty cool heavy weapon though, and heavy weapons are hard to find, and incendiary weapons are even harder to find in my experience. So having something like this is amazing. Having it so modifiable and so well designed, it looks fantastic visually. I think that this is a great weapon. Now, there is also a unique in this mod known as Firestarter, which is pretty great that you can actually get a unique with this mod, and it is found over at the Mass Fusion Disposal site. This weapon does also have one requirement, which is going to be a mod that allows you to consume multiple ammo per shot, which is going to make this thing use 10 flamer fuel every time it is shot, which is honestly a fair trade-off considering the amount of damage you can get out of this thing. And since flamer fuel has only ever been used one way in the vanilla game, which is a very fast-firing flamer, some modifications like that are pretty necessary. Now, this thing is also added to the leveled list. You will be able to find this on legendary drops immediately. At level 1, you could theoretically find this thing on a legendary enemy, or you can purchase it from the weapon vendors or find it anywhere a flamer could be found after level 15. Awesome to see this thing with leveled list integration. Just another reason why this is a fantastic mod you should definitely check out. We're going to go ahead and take a step away from weapons and go back to new enemy types because we have a new mod by Aries. The Commonwealth Goremites is going to add a new bug to the Commonwealth, specifically based on ticks. This is going to be a blood-sucking bug that can really hurt you. Not in the typical fashion of it doing a bunch of damage, but they seem to swarm. There are many of them when you find them, at least in my experience. When I ran into the glowing sea, I got swarmed by 20 to 30 of these guys in a big pack, and they were compounded by a pack of ants as well as scorpions that were all in the glowing sea, which made it even more of a terrifying experience. I found myself actually taking a bit of damage because there were just so many and I could not keep up with my pump action shotgun. I needed probably something more like the incinerator that we just covered. Now, Aries has been hard at work making new enemies for Fallout 4, and I believe this is the first of those releases. There are some others in the works, some of which I've even had my own hands in, so I can't wait for those to come out. But for now, we have these. The ticks, the Goremites. They have a bunch of different skins and variants, which is fantastic. The textures on these are done by Wulfharth, who I wouldn't say I was working with, but we were working on similar projects at the same time, and so we were kind of sharing ideas. I saw his, he saw mine, and we ended up all making a bunch of variants for our own respective creatures, and that resulted in a much better final product. It's nice when artists can bounce off of each other and see something that somebody else has done to inspire them for something they can do. I think that that's always fantastic, and Wulfharth has done an amazing job here. These things look really cool, and they look great in-game, which is always a scary thing whenever you make textures for the first time for something you haven't worked with before. Making sure it looks good in game isn't always a certain thing. That's something that takes a lot of practice, and I will say that these ones look great. I think they fit really nice alongside the existing enemy types. And there's also variants like glowing enemies, just like you would find in the vanilla game, as well as other variants like the vampiric version, which is black and red, and a diseased version, which is pussy and gross, kind of like the gangrenous feral ghouls. If you'd like to encounter these enemies in the Commonwealth, they are spread around, but they are more notably found in the swampy areas of the map and, of course, in the glowing sea, because that's probably where you'll find some glowing variants of these enemies. But watch out. Like I said, they swarm together and they can pack quite a punch when they use their numbers against you. These things are pretty dang cool. Nobody likes a tick. I believe they were added to Fallout 76, but these ones were designed in a way that was a little less gross than the ones in 76, in my opinion. And because of that, there's something that might stay in my load order. Even though I normally wouldn't like these bugs, I do love enemy variety. And, you know, sometimes you're not supposed to like enemies. You kind of need to want to hurt them. So yeah, if you want to smash some bugs with some cool weapons you found in any of my mod reviews, I'd recommend downloading this one because it adds more enemies to your game, and that's always a great thing for replayability. And finally, we have an armor pack that I have been watching forever, funny enough, by Wulfharth, the person who did the textures for the last mod. This is going to be a brand new set of armors and NPCs for a mod known as the Junkernaught Raiders. Not Juggernaut, Junkernaught, because their armors are made entirely out of scrap. Now, technically the vanilla Raider armor is also made out of scrap, but that's more of the scrap metal approach where it's just pieces of flat metal. Whereas this is actually made out of junk items that you can see the individual pieces of, whether it's a big propane tank, a stop sign, a frying pan, a bucket helmet, a so many different things. Road signs, tires, wrenches, all of these things come together to make a really cool set of armor. And to me, this is super believable, something that I would actually see raiders using, and a type of armor I've been wanting for a very long time. Something I had considered making similar to myself, but seeing this being developed over the past few months, I'm very, very happy to finally be covering it because I've been watching it and smiling every single time I saw an update. The models and textures are fantastic for this thing, whether or not they were reused vanilla assets or something completely new, and there are a bunch of different armor types. Many different masks, many different helmets, many different chest pieces, and shoulders and legs, and I believe they're all the same piece, but modifiable at the armor workbench. But they're also added to the leveled list, so you'll find them in all of these crazy configurations all over raiders, and the brand new Junkernaught raider, which is an NPC that can be found anywhere you might find regular raiders. So you'll have a new tough enemy donning this armor to fight against, and that's also pretty dang cool. If you download every mod in this video, you will have so many new enemies to encounter that are added in places where you would find other enemies already, and that makes them super special because it's not just a pocket of enemies, one spot on the map. These guys are going to be everywhere, and you're going to be encountering them all the time. Now, keep in mind with any of these enemies, it is probably better on a new game or on a game where you have gone into an interior, slept for 72 hours, gone out, and then hopefully that would reset the list enough for these guys to start appearing more often. Just a heads up with that kind of thing in case you start downloading these and don't see them immediately. Leveled lists are funky. Sometimes you gotta get them going or start a whole new game for them to work correctly. Now, when it comes to balancing, there's actually a whole balancing section to this mod page where Wulfharth talks about their mentality and how they want to balance things. And I appreciate that because some mods, you just don't see anybody put effort into balancing. And that should matter. If you're trying to use this in a real playthrough, you want it to be balanced and make sense, not be an OP item that you're going to use for the rest of the game. So the idea for these is they are just barely better than Raider armor and obviously heavily modifiable. And the NPCs themselves are going to scale with the character, but cap at level 50. So if you ever get higher than level 50, these guys will start to get easier and easier because they should. They're raiders wearing stop signs, and you need to worry about bigger threats like Deathclaws and the Brotherhood of Steel. That makes a lot of sense to me, and I appreciate Wulfharth's effort there in making this something that makes sense. With a combination of that, plus the wonderful looking armors that are added to level lists with new NPCs, makes this a wonderful mod that is going to stay in my load order, probably until the end of time. So, congrats to Wulfharth for making something amazing. I cannot wait to see what their next project is. I love seeing them step out into new territories with their modding, and that makes me so happy. If you want to try any of the mods featured in this video, they will all be linked down in the description below as always. And while you're down there, consider dropping this video a like if you enjoyed it. Additionally, if you'd like to support my work more directly, whether it's the videos I make like this here on YouTube, or the mods I make myself over on the Nexus, the best way to do that is on Patreon, but of course, that is completely optional, only to those of you who are able to and want to. By no means should you feel like you need to do that. I will be just fine. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace!